They didn't know each other before 1992. Now they're close friends. They have much to tell about, being in their early to mid-30s. They have health problems and also have living nightmares. But they're lucky to be alive. They're veterans of the war in Bosnia and Herzegovina, one of the deadliest in Europe since World War II. Every year they come to the monument to those Serbs who died in the Bosnian War of the early 1990s, lighting candles in remembrance of their fallen friends.
Ozren Heights isn't far from the town of Doboj. It's the place where the Serbian army suffered the biggest losses during the war. Igor, my brother in arms, was wounded there.
They had to take up arms when they were about 20 years old. They only realized what the war was about several years on.
Muslim gunmen came from different Arab countries to fight against the Serbs and the Croats in Bosnia. And on the Croat side, there were a lot of members of the neo-Nazi movement coming from different European countries.
Bosnia and Herzegovina was the most ethnical and mixed republic in the former Yugoslavia. The civil war started there shortly after the breakup of the Socialist Federation. There were three sides involved in the conflict: the Serbs, the Croats, and the Slav Muslims, also called the Bosniaks. Years after the war, the country remains ethnically divided.
Civil war doesn't have any victors. And civil war is always civil war. Bosnia and Herzegovina was not an exception. That civil, religious war wasn't won by any side. Bosnia came from a state of war to a state of unaccomplished war and half-accomplished peace.
The war in Bosnia and Herzegovina lasted from 1992 till 1995. Since the fighting stopped, the country has become a hotspot to those who search for and destroy mines. They call themselves deminers.
This area where we go now actually was a confrontation line between both sides. We're working exactly on a confrontation line. And you'll see the signs here. There were heavy, really heavy fights during the war.
Oliver Mitreski heads the local branch of the Canadian International Demining Corps. This NGO is responsible for several demining sites outside the Bosnian capital Sarajevo. The organization employs a number of specialists from across the former Yugoslavia. Oliver is Macedonian. He says he doesn't have any problems working with people from different ethnic groups and religions. This minefield is a new task for them. After a site briefing, his demining team climbs up a hill. Here is a typical road outside Sarajevo. It's marked with yellow signs on both sides. Actually, this is the safest place here, as there's a minefield a meter away. This is quite normal for one of the most mine-ridden countries in Europe. This man's nickname is Truck. He's one of the most experienced deminers here. He has to work very slowly. The risk of an explosion is high.
On this task we expect at least 40-50 mines to be found. So far we found only UXOs, unexploded ordnance. We expect the mines when we come almost on the top on the hill, where actually was a position of a Serb army during the war.
This area was swept for mines several times, as the hill was taken over by different sites. The Serbs were the last to lay mines there, and here is their legacy. This is the dark reality of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Several families live just 15 meters away from the minefield. They survived the war on the front line, and last 15 years taught them to be aware of mines round the clock. Children in this Muslim community grew up without being able to play outside in the yard, and their parents were at risk each time they left their community.
Here is the minefield, just outside our yard. We can't let the children play outside. We have to look after them at all times. 15 meters away is the minefield.
This community has a gun which it stored away after the war, but it doesn't want to use the weapon again. The lessons of war proved too painful.
I see that war isn't something that people want here. The number of people who prefer to solve problems with weapons is relatively low. Most people in Bosnia and Herzegovina, both politicians and residents, don't want to experience another war.
Many people in Bosnia and Herzegovina still have weapons. However, they keep them under lock and key because of bad memories. The children in the Cholic family know very little about the war, while their parents remember it clearly. Igor is an ethnic Serb. His unit was attacked by Muslim gunmen. Several bullets hit his legs, body and face.
We went through Igor's wounds, the loss of an eye. Despite the fact that his health is severely damaged, we try to live normally. The children know that he doesn't have an eye, but they love him even more. He is the most beloved person to them.
Igor survived miraculously, but he didn't tell his daughters who shot him. He doesn't want them to hate anybody. And his wife wants them to become musicians like herself. Images of war are kept in a special photo album. Now they laugh whilst looking at these pictures, but it wasn't like these before.
My wife Sania and I were aged by the war. We were only 22 when we first met. We were almost children, but anyway, the war wasn't like a finishing line. We want to go further. We want to live.
If the war hadn't taken place, we would never have met Igor. That's how we joke now. Perhaps it was the only positive thing about the war.